This is Gerardo Del Real with Resource Stock Digest. Joining me once again for part 2 is one of the most insightful contrarians in the resource space, Mr. Jeff Phillips. Jeff, how are you?
I'm good, Gerardo. Thank you for having me again.
We chatted recently and the conversation went, frankly, over 20 minutes. And right near the end of it, you promised to come back on and hopefully share a couple of ideas for people to do due diligence on companies that you think have the potential to maybe fit, for someone's portfolio if they're looking to speculate. And I know you don't give financial advice, but man, I'd love to hear some of those ideas in this gold bull market.
Yeah, sure, Gerardo. As long as your listeners realize I don't know what their financial situation is, and I'm just talking about my own portfolio. I've shared with you that I like to buy companies I think are going to get bought out in the cycle, or companies that have something that's somewhat advanced as we enter a bull market so that they have a chance of being bought out to get into a PEA or pre-feasibility study on something that's actually meaningful. I mean, just having a PEA and a pre-feasibility study doesn't mean your deposit's any good. A lot of these companies have those, and but again, with the speculation in gold at 2,000, and gold doesn't have to go higher. If it just sits here and what I believe you'll end up having is, again, a bubble form into the resource sector, and started with the gold and silvers and the precious metal stocks. So again, it's sort of like all of these things, whether it was the internet or, if you've been in the resource sector, there was a uranium boom, a rare earth boom, where valuations just go, you're hoping to get 300% and you get there and then, you're selling some stock, but all of a sudden the stock goes 300% from there, and you can't figure out why, because it's a bubble. So, again, I think we're early on in a bubble. So, again, I'm happy to give you advice. The companies I talk about, I own a lot of shares in, and at least 2 of the companies I'm going to talk about are companies that I actually have decided to consult for, again, because I own a lot of shares, and they want my advice on future financings and how to steer the company, especially in a market where there's going to be lots of capital. And, the key when you're raising money is to get the best money you can. I always like to say you're really just renting the money. So again, there's obviously different ways to raise that money, and it could be more beneficial to shareholders, especially if I'm a shareholder, to have a strategic mining company or a strategic high net worth individual or a strategic institution becoming a large shareholder, as opposed to a brokerage firm with 200 clients and 50 brokers finance you, because then again, you've got 50 different people all trying to get commissions. And, as soon as the stock's available to trade, a lot of times they'll trade it if they're up to collect the warrant, and, and that's their business. There's nothing wrong with that. But again, you want to look for companies that know how to do their financing so that it sets them up for current shareholders to have the best shareholder or share price appreciation. So that being said, so what did you want? What was your question?
Give me a couple of names in the exploration space that you like, companies earlier on that have, maybe a very high potential project, but a project that hasn't been fully explored because of the nasty bear market we're coming out of, that now that we're in a better market, you believe we'll see the attention it deserves and could yield something significant.
Well, yeah, and you also have the COVID environment where you've got to speculate that certain things are going to reopen and so forth. So one of those companies I've been buying for over a year, but it's moved up, mainly for good reason. But there's a company called Chicana Copper, and the stock symbol is Peru, like the country, Peru. Mm-hmm. Management there, and I'll try to keep this interview short. Management's a great management team. I believe they're an honest management team. When that company got started, I liked the asset in Peru they had, 2, 3, 4 years ago. I can't remember. I looked at it, but I didn't like the share structure. I didn't like the people who put the deal together. And it wasn't management. It was, there were some people in management, but they're obviously insiders, but they didn't understand that the other people, the financing side, was probably going to be selling their stock as soon as they could. So I avoided it. But once that happened and I saw the people who put the deal together, what I call the promoters, exit the stock, and Chicana had raised, goodness, it's probably $20+ million, $25 million at between 50 cents and $1 a share. When the stock got down to 20 cents, I thought it was interesting. The other problem they had is they had several setbacks, but one of them was that they were able to drill a few of their targets and had fantastic drill results, and that's why the stock had done so well. but they couldn't drill 80% of the targets they had there. And again, they were having success on the previous targets. People are excited to see those other targets get drilled. And because they had to get another permit, it took a lot longer. It took over a year to get. It was taking forever, and people lost patience. Recently, they just announced they got that permit, and I believe they just announced today that they'll be drilling in mid-August. So again, this is a company that's had fantastic drill results. They're going to have a resource. Their largest shareholder is Goldfield, the major mining company that put roughly $8 million in it, 52 cents a share. The stock is up from the bottom, but again, they just announced they'll start drilling. I suspect they're going to have some very good drill results. I don't have a crystal ball, but I can look at the past and see that they had a lot of great drill results. Sure, there were some misses, but again, I'll take that. So heading into drilling, and if nothing happens COVID-wise, it gets worse, and again, they should be drilling here. They've announced in 2 weeks. I suspect we'll start seeing results all the way. Well, they plan on continuing to drill, and they're fully funded. Goldfield funded the company, so you don't have to worry about some financing suddenly being announced that puts a cap on the stock for a while. So Chicana Copper, symbols Peru, is an interesting speculation. Again, you should talk to people like yourself or listen to the guys that build portfolios, because that just fits into my portfolio, and I like Chicana.
I like Chicana as well. The target they're drilling, or the targets, because they have over 92 on the property, are amongst the most prospective of the entire Soledad project. And this is a project that's yielded, intercepts of over 200 meters of 2-3 grams per ton equivalent, gold equivalent, and a couple percent copper. So very, very rich system. I know you have more than one name, Jeff. Can you share a few more?
Yeah, before I share a few more, I need to give you credit, because on Chicana, I'd obviously looked at it early on, but I'd sort of, I looked at it every once in a while. But you were the one who brought it back up with me. You said, Jeff, you and I talked about it at the New Orleans Gold Conference, great conference run by Brian London. And you had talked about it, and I started talking to them. So you sort of reignited my interest in the company. So thank you very much, Gerardo.
Well, it helped that you were correct, and the people that put the deal together did sell quite a few of their shares and got the price back down and made it very attractive at that point. So you're very welcome, but you were spot on identifying the structure and some of the faults early on. That's been cleaned up in large part by you and people friendly to you. So I think the best days are ahead for Chicana.
Yeah, one of the people I respect most in the business, and someone who really helped me get my start 30 years ago or 25 years ago, Rick Rule. It's kind of funny. I called him because there was a block of stock that needed to be sold from a bank in Chicana, and you think a guy like that manages, basically runs Sprott Resources and runs everything else, wouldn't know the smaller companies or anything. And I called him and I said, I don't know if you have any interest. I know your geologists like the project. I've heard that before, but I don't know if you have any interest in Chicana, but I'm going to be taking a block of stock off a bank that has to sell it. They've got a new fund manager. And he immediately said, yeah, I like Chicana a lot. It was a horrible structure, was destined to come down, but I'd like to buy it here. He knew that's why he's good at what he does. Again, you pick almost any company with him, and he knows the backstory. So, but it was nice to have Rick, I guess still validate my thinking. And so, yeah, no, I like Chicana here. And I think in this market, now that, again, I'm hoping that drilling goes smoothly. And obviously the key in the company is discussed that is making sure everyone's protected and doing things responsibly. But I think, it'll be interesting. So you want another pick so we don't make this a 20-minute interview?
I would love another pick.
Something outside the resource space. I thought I may have talked to you about it before. It's done nothing. Probably trading at the same price last time I talked about it. But is Azarga Uranium. The symbol is AZZ if you're Canadian, or AZZ, zebra if you're U.S., I guess. So AZZ. But that's the Dewey Burdick project in the United States. It's an ISR uranium project. Similar to some other, it's an advanced stage uranium project. And again, uranium can take forever and, again, for a bull market to materialize. But, whether that materializes soon, I think there's going to be more interest in uranium. I think the precious metals market's going to create more interest in a lot of metals. But they're very close, and it could go wrong. But I feel that with the current administration and how far they are, they should be getting their final one of their final key permits, the biggest hurdle here in August. once that happens, that's a U.S.-based uranium project that actually, is one of the higher grade, will be lower cost ISR uranium projects. I know you know that company because we've talked about it before, but I think the company's been trading, below 20 cents. I think it's got as low as 13 and as high as 28. It's probably around the high teens right now.
It's at 18 as we speak.
Yeah, I can absolutely see a number of companies once they, should they get the permit, which is what I'm speculating on, and I believe they will, that stock could easily be a takeout candidate, in the current, without a bull market, in the, let me speculate, 50 cents. If uranium prices start to move, that, again, if you start to get into a bubble like we're getting into precious metals, I don't know where prices will be 12 months from now on some of these junior stocks. So, but Ozarga uranium, if you want to be patient and buy a real asset that's extremely advanced, it's sort of has been in that boring permitting stage. And once you get your permit, especially if it coincides with a bull market, it can be very exciting.
I've always said that uranium is a when question, not an if question. I expected this year to be the year that really set off a uranium bull market, and there's still a lot of year left. Do you see that as the next sector in the commodity space to really take off, similar to the way that gold and silver has?
Well, I absolutely see uranium prices going higher. The hard part is, when's that going to happen? So if I knew that for sure, Gerardo, I probably would be more retired than I am.
More retired.
I guess that my brother jokes you are retired, but I do what I like, and I still play in these markets and because I enjoy it. But yeah, the fact is I don't know exactly. But being a contrarian, you buy stuff when you don't want, others don't want it. You buy the best quality assets, and you got to be prepared to keep writing checks, especially when you're financing companies like me. Keep those companies going, because when the game starts, which is the beginning, like we've started this game in the precious metal sector, you've got to be in the game and have a good share structure and be able to participate in the game. If you don't get to the start of the game, I don't care how good a contrarian you are, you lose your company. So Ozarga is one of those deals that, again, I can't tell you, you could interview me 2 months from now and say, Jeff, you told me to buy that at 18 cents and it's 45 cents today. It wouldn't surprise me, but I also don't know that that's going to happen. I own it because I think sometime here in the next, and I believe they will get this permit and be moving forward in August, but in the next 6 months, it's a very attractive takeout candidate for some larger players in the space, especially because it would be U.S.-based uranium production. As we both know, the U.S. government's looking at certain metals, and specifically uranium and others that, we can't rely on some of the places we rely to get those. They're key to our strategic, in the uranium's case, to our power grid.
Agreed. Amongst other things, right?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Jeff, one more name?
I tell you what, why don't you give me a call next week? I'm looking at a couple things, and one I'm buying, and I'd be happy to share that with you next week and what I paid for it and why I like it. So you put me on the calendar, and I'll share another name or two next week.
Absolutely. You got it. Thank you so much for your time, Jeff. It's been a blast as always.
Thank you, Gerardo.